Okay, guys. Hi, Barbara McConey Smith here. We are live. It's good to be back live. I've been dropping all my videos on Thursdays, but because I want them to be very educational, I also break them down and we do some editing. I write some things on my site so that you guys can watch them over and over again and give you some kind of guidelines. So not just me talking, but also seeing the words or the images that we use. So, but it's been a while since I was here live and I'm excited. Happy Sunday, everybody. If you are on this side of the equator, and happy Monday for those of you in Australia or New Zealand. So today we're going to be talking about diabetes. Why? Because it's an important conversation to have, and not just for you who may be diagnosed with diabetes or living with someone that has been diagnosed with diabetes, but even for you who apparently are not having issues in that sense, but you might be surprised. And the reason why is that I see a lot of people coming through my practice and our lymphatic reset, where we teach them how to do self checks, including blood sugar, because it's an important component of what makes us healthy and keeps us healthy. And they discover they actually are diabetic and they didn't even know. So, whether you've been diagnosed or not with diabetes, this is a video you want to watch because it will absolutely shift your perspective as to what diabetes is. And so if we understand it, then we can treat it. Okay. So if you guys are watching, just say, hey, come here, ask your questions. Happy to answer live as always. But if you're watching this on the replay, then still ask your questions below. Because I'd be happy to, just answer in the comments. Okay. So for those of you watching, happy to answer live if you have any questions. Otherwise, let's just get into it. Today, you guys, we're going to talk about diabetes. Okay. 1, 2, doesn't matter. Diabetes. Okay. So again, come in, say hi. And I don't know why this thing doesn't show me the comments, but if you see me, I'm gonna just write it here. Hi, happy to be with you today. Let's see if you guys see it. Say hi. Just tell me where you're watching from. Today we're talking about diabetes. Okay, so why is diabetes an important conversation to have, whether you've been diagnosed or not? Okay, so let's dive right in. Some of the questions that I'm asked all the time is diabetes an hereditary disease, meaning genetics, right? Or is diabetes truly an autoimmune condition? Is diabetes a pancreas issue? These are some of the things that I get asked. Why? Because that's what you guys are told, or most of you are able to read just on the surface if you do a Google search, or that's what you've been told. Is hereditary, and usually we see more incidents of diabetes within the same families. It falls into the metabolic issues and autoimmune conditions, and it's due to pancreas weakness. So let's address this. And again, you guys, I'll check in here and there to see if there are questions. But Linda, hi. I am pre-diabetic, follow a medical medium lifestyle, but still numbers are not going down. Any idea, please? Yes, of course, Linda. That's why we're here. That is why we're here. So, and feel free to write down, Linda, what it is that you're doing. When you say medical medium, is very vague, meaning that people can do, I don't know, fully raw to heavy metal detox smoothie, bunch of supplements. So tell us what it is that you're doing so that we can have a little bit more information about what's going on with you. But so let's dive into specifically diabetes, right? Before, I would like to say this, and I want you to keep this in mind, that cellular performance is based on 3 elements, okay? And doesn't matter what cells we're talking about, but the cells. You comprise of trillions of cells in your body. Each cell has 3 fundamental functions that needs to work for the cells to work properly, so for their performance to be optimal. And if each cell works perfectly or optimally, then your organs will work properly and your body will be in good shape, in good health. Okay, so doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. In fact, I want you to just remove the concept of diagnosis and remove the concept of disease. because this is just something aimed at confusing us and localizing us into a problem so that we get distracted by the main systemic issue. Okay, so as I always say, if you have a pain here, obviously the eye goes here. And in fact, especially in America, we are so localized and so specialized that we have a doctor for everything. We have a doctor specialized in this, a doctor specialized in this, and doctor specialized in this, and doctor specialized in this. You know where I'm going with this, right? So, but why? That means that this doctor can only tell you what's going on here. But if you ask him about this, they have no idea. And they will send you to this doctor. This doctor will send you to this doctor. And this contributes to create that idea that every single symptom that you're feeling, it's due to a localized and isolated situation. But the truth is, whatever is happening in your eyes is not different than what's happening into your gum, into your GI, into your gums, into your, into your hands, into your joint. Is still the same. It's a systemic situation that is happening, that is showing up in different parts of your body based on genetic weaknesses and other things. But it's a systemic thing. So don't fall into that trap of believing that if you have breast cancer, that is a breast issue. Absolutely not. So let's go back to what I just said at the beginning, which is every cell. Doesn't matter what the cell is, but every cell in your body needs three specific, is based on three specific elements. They have to work in order for the cell to perform optimally. So one, every cell needs to be fed. Who feeds the cell? The cells, the blood. So obviously having good blood and healthy blood is fundamental because it's getting the right nutrient. Every cell gets the right nutrient if your blood is clean. Now, nowadays, most of us don't really have a very clean blood. Now, we're going to address why. But let's go back to three elements. I want to make it easy for you guys so you remember. So every cell needs to be fed, blood. Every cell needs to be clean, lymph. And every cell needs to move, nervous system, okay? So we are now here going micro on a cellular level. So remember we started talking about diabetes, and we are talking about diabetes, but in this intro I'm giving you, this is good for everything. Because any ailment, not just diabetes, that you may be going through, any imbalances, it still comes down to your cells, the quality of your cells, and the performance of your cells. So if your cells are not performing and they're not healthy, then it doesn't matter whether it's brain tissues, breast tissues, reproductive, tissues. It doesn't matter. Your cells are not performing. Why? We gotta go back to basics. So, are they fed? What do cells feed off of? Sugar. What kind of sugar? Glucose. Okay. So just to be clear, the cells run on sugar, not on fat, not on protein. I just want to make sure that this is clear. So they have to be fed. Two, they have to be clean, because the cells can't just get up and go to the bathroom. They just can't get up and go to the kitchen. So something has to bring food at a cellular level and waste removal at cellular level. That's why our lymphatic system is from head to toe, because it has to clean all the cells. Again, the cell doesn't go to the bathroom, right? Sewage elimination. So it has to be clean on a cellular level, like it has to be fed at a cellular level. And then there's a nervous system that moves the cells, okay? That activates the cells. So if any of these three elements, feeding, cleaning, and moving the cells, doesn't work, then we have what? Cellular issues. So your little cell is either starved or constipated because it's not clean, or in a sense paralyzed is what we would call it, like hypo. So when you have hypothyroidism, right? So the function of that cell, and particularly we're talking about thyroid, it's impaired because it's a nervous system situation. But of course, these three, they're interrelated. Remember when I told you at the beginning, you can't isolate and localize. right? So if you have problem feeding the cells, we're going to have problem cleaning them and moving them. If you have problem moving the cells, you're going to have problem eliminating and cleaning the cells and feeding them, because without elimination, the blood that recirculates is a dirty blood. So it doesn't fill the cells properly and is actually asphyxiating the cells. So cells die or turn. That's cancer, right? So with this in mind, you guys, and again, please chime in if you come in. I'll check periodically the messages here, the questions. So with this in mind, we're looking at diabetes, but as I said, this is what I just mentioned to you guys is good for anything else that's going on in your body. Remember, whatever you feel, it's never local. Don't get distracted. It's never what it is. It's a systemic issue. And eventually it comes down to a cellular issue. Why are the cells, let's say in your brain, not working properly? Why are the cells in your reproductive issues, in your pancreas even, that we're going to discuss today, right? So let's now, we go back from the micro, how the cells work, remember, blood, lymph, and nerves, to a little bit more broad, a little bit more macro. So remember, we don't have to tell the cells what they need to do, because this is another mental constriction of us going out to a doctor, a specific doctor that works on, endocrine system or reproductive system, or like endocrinologists and OBGYNs really don't talk. In fact, one refers to the other, right? And so the idea that things are localized, and the things that if something is broken, so to speak, let's say in your pancreas or in your ovaries, we need to supply something from outside, whether it's steroids, hormones, to basically do either the work of the cells or tell the cells what they need to do. But this is ludicrous. Why? Because cells, each individual cell in your body, has an innate intelligence. And we tend to forget that. And doctors that went to school, I don't know what they studied, but so we tend to forget that. It's the same innate intelligence that when we cut, right, our cells knows exactly how to heal that wound. So clearly, there's an intelligence, something that we don't need to think about it, right, that will heal the wound, okay? So when we give birth, we don't have to tell the body what to do. The body knows exactly what it's doing. So if we agree on this and we recognize this and we see it every day, right? Then we have to remember, though, that this innate intelligence is present all the times and everywhere. Every single cell has a consciousness, if you will, right? And an intelligence. So the idea that if something is broken, which is also a faulty idea, if we start experiencing symptoms that something is broken inside of us and we need to supply from outside. And you guys, you heard me before, I have big issues with this amount of supplements that practitioners are giving you, telling you that, if you want to live a healthy life, you need to be dependent on all this amount of supplements. I don't agree on that either. So, but this is still perpetrating the idea, the delusional idea, that we need to fix the cells by telling them what to do or stopping them from doing certain things. But this is going against nature. There's an innate intelligence. If you're still breathing, your body is not broken. The body, if the moment is broken, is when you don't wake up anymore. So if you're still breathing, your body is still keeping you alive, knows exactly what it's doing, and in fact is making decisions to efficiency decision, given what it's dealing with, right? So if the food we ingest, it's not premium fuel, the body will have to adjust. But the body will always make decisions to preserve us. So even when you feel that you have pain and weaknesses, and you feel like, well, because my thyroid is weak, because this is broken, you're not broken. You're just getting on the way of that innate intelligence, and you are preventing that innate intelligence from doing the work it was designed to do. So make no mistake, none of you is broken. If you're still breathing and still watching, you're not broken. So this idea that we have to take something from outside to tell the cells what to do is ludicrous, because cells know what to do. If they're not doing it, it's because something is stopping them or impeding their natural process. But we don't have to teach the cells what to do. They know. So what we need to do is to remove the obstacle. And then the cell will, just like when they now, it's basically what we do when we take supplements, this amount of supplements and or medications and drugs like steroids, insulin, hormones, right? It's basically having a cut, and instead of letting the body do what it knows what to do, we keep opening it, we keep scratching it. So impeding, basically going against what the body naturally would be doing. That's what we do when we take all this, with these hormones, these drugs, even this amount of supplements. You keep scratching the wound. You stop the body from doing what it's supposed to do. So instead of, I wanted to offer a perspective shift. So instead of looking at something is broken, like my pancreas in the case of diabetes, and so I have to supply insulin. Why? Because the doctors tell you that diabetes is a pancreas issue. The pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin to escort the glucose into the cells. So what do? I give the insulin from outside. But you know what that does? Nothing. It's going to keep you sick forever. Because whether we want to go on that rabbit hole of understanding whether there's an advantage for someone to keep us sick, or whether they truly ignore the science, we don't know that. We're not going in that rabbit hole. But the point is, taking hormones or steroids from outside is not going to fix anything, because it's also not addressing the root cause. So if there's a pancreas issue, what we see is that there's, in the case of type 1, there is not enough insulin produced by the beta cells that are inside of the pancreas to bring the glucose into the cells. So what's the solution? You go to a doctor. This is how diabetes is treated traditionally and allopathically. Well, you first of all put on a specific diet that eliminates all the sugar, and that includes the fructose from fruit. And then you're going to be given an hormone like insulin, because you're not producing it, so they're going to give it to you from outside. If you go through menopause, or if your hormones are low, what they're going to give you? Progesterone, estrogen. Why? Because they don't try to fix the problem. They're just going to suppress the problem by masking the symptoms. Oh, look, now you got insulin because you're injecting it every day. Doesn't fix anything. If anything, it's going to keep you sick, because the glands, they are in charge, like pancreas, to produce the insulin. And the other glands that are in charge of metabolizing glucose, like the adrenals, become weaker and atrophied. This is the case of you taking thyroid hormones, right? The more you take them, the more you're going to atrophize. So they say, but make no mistake, this is true for the concept, for the idea of supplements as well. People that are constantly supplementing, and of course, you've been convinced that the soil is depleted, the sky is polluted, the chemicals are all over us, so we can only thrive and survive by constant supplementation. But that is not how we were designed. You guys, we made it that far, this many millions of years, because we were able to adapt. But what the body will adapt. So if you take zinc every day, the body will adapt. But whatever was the innate intelligence that was supporting the body's ability to metabolize zinc, to absorb zinc, it's going to be suppressed. Why? Because now we're getting it from outside, right? And with time, we have evolved, and it's estimated that kids will be born by 20, maybe in the next 20 years, with bigger liver to accommodate the amount of toxicity that needs to be. So in the presence of the issue, the body will adjust. But if we mask the issue by supplementing, by taking hormones, then the body doesn't even know that it needs to adjust and maybe evolve, like natural evolution, because it's misled to believe that zinc is absorbing zinc because you're supplementing all the time. And so whether it's drugs on a larger extent and or constant supplementation, I'm in opposition of all of it, simply because I know how the body works. And we do not allow the body to actually realize what the real issue is and try to go with the body and support the body in resetting that problem. Does it make sense? Okay, so let's go back to diabetes. Remember the 3 rules, right? So every cell needs to be fed, clean, and moved, okay? When we look at diabetes, we look at a sugar metabolism issue, So obviously, why? Because the first thing we see is a blood work that says, oh, look at you, you got really high blood sugar. You must be insulin resistant, right? Meaning the sugar is here floating in your blood instead of being ushered by it attaches to the insulin and goes into the cells. So that is the first problem. Remember when we said feeding, cleaning, and moving? Well, when you have sugar metabolism issues, the cells don't get fed properly, okay? But remember when I also told you these three elements, they are connected. If you have problem cleaning the cells, you have problem feeding them and moving them. And if you have problem moving them, most likely you're gonna end up having problem feeding them and cleaning them. So why do I say that? Because on the surface, we look at blood work, and when we do our lymphatic reset, I teach people self-checks, including how to check for the blood sugar on a regular basis. And believe it or not, and this is one of the reasons why I'm here talking about diabetes today, is because more people than you think are actually currently diabetic, walking around completely unaware that they have a sugar metabolism issue. Okay? So anyway, they look at the blood work and they say, oh, look at that. Your blood sugar is high. So go off of sugar. That doesn't fix the problem. That just masks it, right? Because you have a sugar problem. So, oh, sorry. I just spilled my grapefruit juice. Where was I? You guys had grapefruit juice everywhere. Anyway, the beautiful things of life videos. Okay, so where were we? So we said if we have problem moving them, you have problem feeding them and cleaning them, right? Okay, so let's look at diabetes and let's look at the sugar issue. So sugar, where you may either not produce enough insulin on type 1, that's why they look at the pancreas. And so they supplement with, injection of insulin. But as I said, it doesn't fix the problem because it's not the root cause. What do you mean, Barbara? If I don't have enough insulin, then that is the problem. Pancreas may be. Well, you will be surprised that doctors in Canada a few years ago discovered how type 1 specifically, it's not a pancreas issue and it's not a sugar issue. It's a consequence of what? It's a neurological issues. What the doctors in Canada discovered is that in the pancreas, it's not the beta cells that don't produce enough insulin. It's the autonomic nervous system, is the nervous system of the pancreas that is not enabling the beta cells to produce insulin. Remember when I said blood feeds them, lymph cleans them, nerves moves them. So if your nerve system is down, what this doctor discovered and proved that the pancreas issues, the type 1 diabetes issues, is not a pancreas issue per se. It's a nervous system inside of the pancreas. But what nervous system? The autonomic nervous system. Okay, so when we talk autonomic nervous system, you know what we talk about? Adrenals. Wow. So wait a minute, Barbara. Are you telling me that type 1 diabetes, no, type 2 too, it's not a pancreas issue? It's an adrenal issues? Yes, that's what I'm telling you. So what do I know? I'm going to tell you how do I know? So, but just follow me for a second. So if it's not a pancreas issue, meaning something inside of the pancreas is not working, but not what they thought, right? So what's not working is the nervous system. But remember what I told you at the beginning. If something is happening to your pancreas, I promise you it's not just happening into your pancreas. It's happening systemically. It may show in your pancreas due to genetic weaknesses, and cellular memory, because we're going to talk about cellular memory too in a second. Meaning cells remember, and we have passed on from our parents some of this cellular behavior that is not necessarily a genetic, like a DNA behavior, but it's cellular memory. So we can offset that. We can turn that off, that behavior, that response, like we talked a few days ago about anxiety. But anyway, let's not get into that conversation now. So pancreas, is that an issue? No. Canadian doctors discovered and proved that it's actually a neurological issue. In fact, they call type 1 diabetes a neurological diabetes. That means it has to do with one of the three elements, which is not feeding and cleaning, but it's the moving, the nerve part of. But again, remember when I told you, if you have a problem in one of these three, you're going to have a problem with all of them. So we talked about pancreas, we talked about diabetes, we talked about inability to produce enough insulin. Doctors discover that is the nervous system in the pancreas that is disabling beta cells to produce enough insulin. So instead of getting supplemented with a hormone called insulin, you should go fix the root cause, which is why is your nervous system not working properly, right? Because if we fix that, then you don't need insulin, which, by the way, is only masking the problem. And on top of that, if you're on insulin, you're probably on a diabetic traditional diet, which is remove all the fruit. So now we go back to our adrenals. And most of you, I hear probably 99.9% of you today comes with some level of adrenal depletion, adrenal burnout, however you want to call it. Everybody has these stacks adrenals. Now, our lifestyles, our societies, our spiritual understanding here does not allow for a life that is more centered, and it kind of supports a constant state of fight or flight or freeze mode. So whatever is your reason, most of us tend to have some level of adrenal depletion. Wait, so how are we talking adrenals in relationship to diabetes? Well, because I told you, it is not a pancreas issue. It is an adrenal issue. It's a nervous system issues. But Barbara, so you told us that there are three elements, right? Feeding the cells, cleaning the cells, moving the cells. And you said that if there's an issue at each one level, all of three gets affected, of course, because we're a system. So we're saying that the nerve part of the element that makes the constitute, a proper cell functioning is down in the pancreas. Okay, but then that is determined by what? The autonomic nervous system. So we have to go down to adrenals. But adrenals are also that walnut-shaped gland that is sitting where? Oh, on top of your kidneys. Yeah, remember that? Adrenals and kidneys. And in fact, when we do lymphatic reset, what do we teach people? We teach people to check their blood pressure every day. Why? Because that blood pressure, those numbers that you see, systolic and diastolic, what is that? Those are the numbers that show us the performance of your kidneys and of your adrenals and the performance of your kidneys. Why? Because these two organs are connected. In Chinese medicine are only one organ. So if you have adrenal issues, you have kidneys issues and vice versa. Okay, so let's see if we can close this circle now. So cells need three things to work efficiently: food, being clean, and being moved. If any of this doesn't work, all of them are impacted. And so here we're closing the circle. How? Because if it's true that this doctor in Canada proved and discovered and proved, in fact, they should have won probably a Nobel Prize for that, but hey, who is in for truly resolving diseases? We're here to keep people sick, right? So if it's a neurological issue, not really a beta cells issue, so not really a pancreas issue, then we have to look at our adrenals. But the adrenals are sitting on top of the kidneys. So then we have to look at our elimination system too. And when we talk kidneys, right, then we talk lymphatic system too, because it's the sewage system of the body. And the kidneys are the organs that is in charge of filtering and eliminating that sewage, right? So if adrenals are impacted, kidneys are impacted. If kidneys are impacted, then lymphatic system is impacted. But when all of these are impacted, how can we have good blood? So remember the three elements: moving, nervous system, lymphatic system, and the circulatory system, the blood. Then they're all messed up, right? So when you have weak adrenals, you may most likely have sugar metabolic issues. In fact, when we talk about diabetes, what we really need to talk about is inability to metabolize sugar. Doesn't matter type 1, type 2, hypoglycemia, or diabetes full on type 2. You may have, when the glands don't work, you may have high blood sugar or even too low blood sugar, but they are the same, two different sides of the same coin. And the problem is that your nervous system is not working properly. Okay, so then what do you do? When you have high blood sugar, you start storing the sugar as fat, right? That's why we see a lot of people with type 2 that tend to be overweight, right? Because the body does not know what to do with the sugar in the blood, and it could be fatal, so it's going to store it as fat. And then you may end up with, high blood pressure, for instance. That's another sign. So I wanted to make sure that we understand what a cell needs to thrive. What are the three systems that are involved in making sure that a cell thrives, and how when one is affected, the other two are affected as well. But why do we need to understand that? Because if we understand this, you guys, and again, this is true for your pancreas, and your adrenals control not just your pancreas, but it's true for everything else. The root cause, it's never what it seems, right? Especially because when they look at root cause of things, they just still localize. Oh, you got a problem in your thyroid? Must be a thyroid issue. Well, this is where it's expressing, but most likely it's a systemic issue, right? Because if you are not eliminating properly, if you're not feeding yourself properly, and then your nervous system is affected, then what shows up, it's weaknesses, but not because the issue is localized and limited here to your thyroid, or to your breast, or to your reproductive system, or to your brain. Does it make sense? I hope it makes sense, you guys. And if you have questions as I, continue, please. Lori, blood sugar. What do you mean by that? Okay. So, what happens? So how, if you guys are diabetic right now, if you are on insulin, if you have seen doctors, what have they told you? Most likely they said, okay, you gotta supplement, right, insulin, and you gotta stay away from all the sugar. And they include, of course, cakes and donuts, but they also mean grains, and they also especially mean fruit. So what is accepted is few berries, because they have a low glycemic index, but very high antioxidants. So that's kind of the extent with which people, especially diabetes people, eat fruit. But let me just tell you, this is such a very basic, I would say that diabetes is probably the easiest thing to treat and reverse once you understand this simple thing. So type 2, we have issues producing insulin. Why? Because we have a neurological issue. Now you understood, right? It's not a pancreas issue. It's not a beta cells issue inside of the pancreas that don't produce enough insulin. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's what people can see. But if you go underneath, you're like, oh, look, it's a neurological issue. It's an autonomic nervous system issue. Of course, it's an adrenal issue. So then probably kidneys are affected too. So it becomes an elimination issue. And of course, when you can't eliminate, your blood cannot be clean, right? Because it's recirculating this toxicity. So once we understand that, we also know something, which is what? We know that there's one type of sugar that does not really require insulin to get into the cells. Which sugar is that? Do you guys know? Do you want to guess? Anybody? What is the one sugar that can go straight to the cells and does not require insulin? I think some of you know it, maybe too shy to write it, but I know you know it. If you're watching me for a while, you must know this. The one sugar that does not require insulin, a lot of insulin to get into the cells, it's fructose. And where do we find this fructose? In the fruit. But what do doctors usually advise people with metabolic issues, in this case, issue metabolizing sugar? What do they advise them? To stay very, very far away from sugar. My grandma, my nonna, she had diabetes. Her sister also had diabetes, and her mom also had diabetes. Hence, it's a family thing. There's nothing she could have done. I wish I knew than what I know now, and maybe I could have saved my grandma. She lived this life of, I mean, she loved fruit. She healed herself with fruit. And yet, because that was, especially in Italy, I mean, we do a lot of fruit, but, her innate wisdom and her, generational wisdom was hijacked by modern doctors that said, you got to inject insulin and you have to stay away from fruit. But the one sugar, remember, cells run on sugar. Okay? So, and they run not on complex sugar, they run on simple sugar. So the simplest sugar of all is your fructose. And it's so simple that just goes straight to the cells. So we have reversed every single time diabetes with our lymphatic reset simply by having people drinking a lot of juices. And not simply, because we do a lot of other things, but people that come with high level of blood sugar, we reduce it, and I have ample testimonies just by fruit and fruit sugar and fruit juices. Of course, in specific combination and under supervision. But after 6 weeks of lymphatic reset, sugar values in the blood normal. And I'm not talking about a full-on diabetic person. And this has happened more than once. That's what I'm saying. Diabetes, once you understand it, you fix it. The problem is that diabetes is not fixed because it's not understood, and the remedies and the suggestions of the way to go about it is absolutely the opposite of what you're supposed to do. Staying away from fruit, what do you mean? You cannot starve cells from sugar. We run on simple sugar. Of course, stay away from grains, stay away from complex carbs, but don't stay away from fruit, because fruit is what's going to fix it. Remember? So remember the three elements: blood, lymph, and nerves. So they need to work efficiently, this three system, so that the cell can thrive and can even repair itself. Because remember the innate intelligence, the body knows exactly what it needs. We just have to get away from it, remove the obstacles. So facilitating this process is realizing what diabetes is, what the problem is. It's not an insulin problem, it's a nervous system problem. And so we have to act on the nervous system. And we have to continue. So you've heard, especially those of you who comes from medical medium, you know that in order to reestablish the health of your adrenals, we need glucose, fructose specifically. And make no mistake, when I have a diabetic patient, I give her fructose and not glucose. What do I mean? I give her fruit and not vegetables. And I can see, because she does self-checks with me, and I can see that whenever she eats a salad, her blood sugar goes up because it's more complex sugar. Fructose is so simple. And especially with the use, depending if digestive issues are associated with this or whatnot, with the use of juices that bypass the fiber aspect and go straight to the cells. You need to rebuild these adrenals, and the adrenals need sugar, specifically, in the case of diabetes, fructose, because there is a deficiency. Now, the deficiency, which is a weakness, which is on a nerve level, remember the three level? In the diabetes is a nerve level. But then, of course, the nerve level affects the cleaning part and the feeding part. But once we understand where the problem is, then we understand what to do, which is not to get hormones and to stay away from fruit, but instead is not to get hormones and get enough fruit to reset these adrenals and support the body in the reset, facilitating the absorption of that sugar, because that's what the problem is, right? The absorption of the sugar, and the cells will regenerate. Those that are too weak to be saved will be discarded. So people will lose weight sometime, no matter what the disease is, cancer, MS, will lose a lot of weight because you're losing all these damaged cells that could not be saved, and it's more efficient for the body to produce new cells. So it's okay if you lose weight. Sometimes you lose hair as you're healing because the body is just discarding the cells that don't work. They are too atrophied or too damaged to be repaired. And what you want as you're rebuilding yourself and your tissues, you want new cells. They are strong cells. Remember when I told you that cells have like a genetic memory, right? And I said it's a genetic memory that is passed on from your parents. We talked about anxiety not long ago, and how that is also passed on from generations. So people end up having this default anxious mode for a situation doesn't even justify it. And it's not even your pain, I said, it's the pain of your parents and grandparents. This is being proven. Now, the same thing, though, is true for when we talk about any genetic weakness, which is more than a gene issue, it's a behavioral issue. So when, for instance, those of you who come with me to me to do a lymphatic reset before they try to conceive and get pregnant. Why? It's important to eliminate all this toxicity, rebuild cells from a stronger perspective, so that then the ones that you will pass on to your kid will be healthier. But instead, people get pregnant and they already have all this weaknesses that they end up passing to the child, and the child is also coming out in the world that is a little bit dirtier than where the one we came onto and our parents come onto. So the load of the child, the toxic load of the child, and the weaknesses inherited sometimes creates this special cocktails where you see this increase of neurological issues, autoimmune condition in young children and whatnot. So your diabetes is a neurological issues that affects the three important elements that make a cell perform the way it's supposed to. But again, look around. Someone that is diabetic is usually not just diabetic, because by the time it gets to a point in which gland performance is so compromised, it's not just going to be compromised, for instance, at a pancreas level. There's always other things going on. That's why when people are diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, usually they say that they go in couple. Because if you are open to one, like Hashimoto, would then lead to something else. Could be Sjogren, could be lupus. But not because you got bad luck. It's because that just shows us what level of deficiency you're at. And if the root cause is not addressed, I mean, autoimmunity, for those of you who have done my autoimmune program, it's like a Christmas tree just waited to be lighted. And so every new diagnosis, every new weakness turn on a new light on the Christmas tree. And so people end up with 2 or 3 conditions. But what I'm saying is it's not the localized issue. It's not your thyroid issue. It's not your with Sjogren's eyes and saliva. MS. It's your RA. It's your joints. It's your spine. It's your brain. It's not a localized issue. Localized issues. Most likely, if you keep not addressing the root cause, other lights will come up on the Christmas tree, right? Why? But it's the same root cause for all. Doesn't matter where they show up in your body. So I hope I'm giving you fructose, glucose. Yes, fructose, Lori, is that what you were responding to? The easiest sugar that we can possibly metabolize is fructose. So, and that's a tragedy, right? Because that's the first sugar that the doctors, misinformed doctors, but I don't have any mercy for them anymore, because someone like me that didn't do medical school can access this information and can try these things on their practice to see if they work, then they can do that too. But instead they don't care. They just go it's like silos, and it's just like routine, stamp, done. And they don't care to realize, but how come people don't get better? I was talking to my OBGYN, and she's definitely an enlightened one, and she would say, Barbara, I see people reversing autoimmune condition all the time now, but that's not what we were taught in school. And I said, yes, and I'm pretty sure that they reverse autoimmune conditions not with doctors. And she said, absolutely. So she's definitely very interested in what I do, and maybe we may collaborate in the future, but it's not the first time that I am asked to advise doctors, because now they're like, wait a minute, you can reverse autoimmune condition? You can help people reverse autoimmune condition? But how do you do that? Because what I was taught is to provide this drug, and this drug, and keep them on the specific diet. That's clearly not serving them. So, diabetes, the truth about diabetes is that diabetes is not a localized issue like any other condition, and it's not a pancreas issue. It is a sugar metabolism issue. However, the root cause is a neurological issue. So if we fix our nervous system, one of the 3, then we can fix our lymphatic system, elimination system, and we can, of course, fix the type of fuel that the cell receives to work optimally. And when you fix that, remember, the body doesn't when we start working on this, the body doesn't just say, oh, I see, let me go fix the cell in the pancreas or the nervous system in the pancreas. The body fixes everything, right? So if you improve the quality of your cells, you improve the quality of your cell overall. So that's why when people work with me and we're, their main concern seems to be diabetes in that case, all of a sudden, a bunch of other symptoms they had, they're like, oh my God, I'm sleeping better at night. Oh, my what do you call it? Like, I can't think of the name and I'm all wet here. But again, a bunch of symptoms, non-related necessarily to diabetes, at least in the common people's mind. But as I said, we're systemic issues. So whatever you feel has the same root cause, doesn't matter what you feel in your body. So, but when we work on diabetes and we work on regenerating the cells so that we have stronger cells, and we're working on eliminating the cells that no longer serve us, and that is our own cells. This is viral cells, pathogenic cells, of course, chemicals and metals. When we work on eliminating all that, then the cells have the chance to rebuild themselves or just rebuild brand new cells with much better quality, so to speak. It's like building a house with subprime material versus, first quality material. You don't want to build with subprime material, right? So that's what we do when we address the three elements, but in particular, that's what we do with the lymphatic system, with the lymphatic reset. That is not, although it's called lymphatic reset, just addressing the lymphatic system. It's addressing these three elements that I was telling you, which is the blood, the lymph, and the nervous system. And who can say that does not have nowadays an impacted nervous system? Okay. So let me see. Any more questions, ladies? Here, you watching? Yes. What's going on here? Linda is saying, yes, my doctor told me to cut right back on my fruit intake. You guys, let me just say this. I most treat my daughter. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, almost 5 actually. She's never really had any issue, right? But I mentioned before that my daughter's diet is 80% fruit. Now, the few times that we have gone to a doctor too, she's a naturopathic doctor, my daughter was showing a little bit of yeast, not because in her private part and not because her diet wasn't properly. It's because I feel at the time she was truly eliminating some of the things she was kind of that she has inherited and she was born with. As I mentioned to some people before, I saw speckles of metals in my daughter when she was younger in her potty, in her pee. So, but just to tell you, even an enlightened doctors, what she told me is, well, Barbara, because of yeast, so lay low on fruit right now and just give her fat and protein, which is the traditional Candida diet, right? You guys. So what I did, I went back home, I kept my daughter on 48 hours of straight fruit, and the Candida was gone. Why? Because especially when you have a metabolic issue, a sugar metabolic issue, meaning you're not able to metabolize sugar, the sugar that remains in your body will ferment and it will call fungi, yeast. They are in part of the sugar fermentation, right? So it's not uncommon for people who have diabetes to also have fungi problem. Nail fungus, other type of fungus. It could be candida. Why? Also, personally, and I strongly feel that few people have agree with me, but this is my own intuition. It tells me how, because I see the stool of many of you that work with me on my programs, whether it's lymphatic reset or autoimmunity program or 101, I see the stools and I see how we all arbor Candida, E. coli, C. difficile. We see all of them, and yet we're not all sick. So I know that you may not have a Candida issue, although you do have Candida in your body. And so I believe that these are friendly bacteria. friendly, opportunistic and needed bacteria. And when we start having like a candida overgrowth, it's not that all of a sudden our body got confused and let the candida do the work. It's the body calling on to, again, we have to get into this dimension of innate intelligence. So each cell having their own intelligence and signaling the other part of our body, which is basically non-human cells, signals those to come and support um, to do the work that the body is not able to do. So for instance, if you have issue metabolizing glucose, okay, and you got a bunch of sugar in your blood, the body will signal yeasts and fungi to come and eat up, gobble up that sugar because it's not able to do so. Why? Because we already talked about an impaired autonomic nervous system. But what I'm saying is that the result, an overgrowth of candida, yeast, parasite, whatever that we can discuss with Lyme, and it's still a sign of something else. The problem is not the candida. The problem is why the candida was either called, that's my opinion, personal intuitive opinion, that the body is signaling candida to come and help. It's like firefighters. You got to put down this fire because I'm not able to do it. So we need them. And our balance, our well-being depends on a proper balance between our own cells and these kind of foreign cells that we all harbor, okay? So anyway, if you have that issue metabolizing glucose, you also have issues probably with fungi and parasites. And they are able to grow, especially the parasites, and feed off food that we either don't properly digest, we don't properly metabolize, okay? So addressing the diet, addressing the root cause, leading with a specific raw, ideally fruit, not that you can have cooked food, but depending, it's all individual. That's why I guide these groups. Otherwise, I just give you a diet, you do it. But what people pay for is for the support, as the individual support, and understanding, okay, I have clients coming in with, insulin on one hand and, please help me fix this because I realize that this doesn't serve me, doesn't help me, is different than someone else that maybe doesn't have that kind of metabolism issue. And so, but maybe she may have other type of issues because, an adrenal depletion may affect the way you metabolize glucose or may affect other things, right? It might affect your thyroid. It might affect other parts of your body. So, but ultimately, an adrenal issue will always affect your elimination, so your kidneys, your lymphatic system, and obviously your blood quality, right? So, ladies, let me know if you have. Tina is saying that makes so much sense. Yes, Tina, and that is the thing. When I give, so what I tell my coaches, because maybe you guys know, you heard this before, this lymphatic reset became so popular all over the world, and now we have a certification for coaches that want to host lymphatic groups, lymphatic resets. And what I always tell my coaches is the easiest it is, the more truthful it is. They look at me and say, oh my God, what you say makes sense. And I'm like, but why were you doing something that didn't make sense to you? Well, because the doctor said it or the guru said it. So just this lymphatic reset that we just finished, one lady was on medical medium for over 1 year. She got progressively worse. The first thing we did, we removed some supplements, most of them, and we removed the celery juice. In 3 days, she was already seeing results that she had not seen in over a year. Now, of course, she didn't come into the medical medium already, healthy. Otherwise, she wouldn't start to follow the program. But she got progressively worse. And so we have to understand why. The whole idea of push through, it's a flawed idea. You don't have to push anything. You have to listen to your body. You don't push, blindly through. You understand what your body is telling you. Anyway, so that's why I said you need a guided group. You need support because each of you is individual. However, the rule of thumb is 3 cells, three functions, and they all affect each other. And if they don't work, the quality of the cells and the performance of the cells is going to deteriorate over time. And eventually it's going to lead to weaknesses in tissues and glands that are called then diabetes, thyroid issues, fibromas, cysts, cancer, you name it, right? Or immunity, let's not even touch that. But nothing this is all nonsense. It's all about the three function, the quality of the cells, and what you need to do to make sure that the cells perform optimally, right? So I hope that this talk was just give me some feedback, you guys, that it was interesting, that was at least something new that you maybe never heard before. And if you did hear this before, whether from me or somewhere else, I don't know where, but well, I hope it was a good refresher and a good motivator that please, 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 if you do have a metabolism issue, do not go off of fruit. And in fact, contact me, consider joining our lymphatic reset. One is starting on the October 10th, because the lymphatic reset helps everybody, but truly and so easily, the first thing that goes is metabolism issue if you follow the program the way you're supposed to. And so that I hope will, again, I wish I knew then when my grandma, my nonna was alive, what I know now, because I know that probably I could have given her a few, maybe another 10, 15 years on her lifespan, because of the way she was misled and misunderstood in her diabetes and her diabetic expression. Okay. So any questions, I'm happy to answer them here. If you're watching this on the replay, I'm really happy to address the questions. I will come back and check, okay? So also, if you have been following me on my YouTube channels, every Thursday I drop a new video. It's not a live video, it's a recorded video. So if you go on my YouTube channel, the Barbara Manconi Smith, you'll find all the videos. We talked about healing back pain, we talked about autoimmunity, we talked about long COVID, and heavy metals and whatnot. So, and a new one is coming now on Thursday. Okay. So thank you so much, guys, and have a great rest of your weekend.